Hi guys, and welcome to episode 15 of the 7,000 gold without using a mage before TBC challenge. And that is the first time that I have said that introduction while actually knowing what the release date of TBC is. That's right, we've had it announced that we are getting TBC Classic on the 1st of June and that the pre-patch will be arriving on the 18th of May. Now, I expect this to have a pretty dramatic effect on the economy immediately, as well as again on the 18th and of course on the 1st with the release of the expansion. So, how am I adapting? Well, you can see me now in Tier's hand, and of course all of this footage was gathered over the last few days, so before that information has dropped. And I've been here quite a lot over this length of this challenge. I do love this farm, but it's probably the last time you're going to see me here. That is because I think that a lot of people are going to be giving up on endgame content right about now, with TBC being right around the corner. They've been farming it for a while, chances are their characters are already prepared, and instead now they'll be looking towards things like professions and farming up the materials for jewel crafting or levelling up alts and their professions, especially given that the boost has been confirmed now to be a relatively cheap price, as well as also potentially being bundled with some cosmetic items if they are something that you are interested in, meaning a lot of people will be partaking in that boost, and as a result will need to power level professions pretty quickly and efficiently. So with that being said, I think it's going to be a better use of time now to shift away from these higher level farms and move into something that's going to provide a lot more materials for profession leveling, as well as potentially some BOE blues that people might want to purchase while leveling up their new alts. That being said, I do think that a lot of people are only going to be leveling their alts if they are going to be taking advantage of the new classes that their faction has now gained access to. So I will, as a Horde player, be aiming primarily for those nice plate pieces for all of the aspiring paladins out there. Of course, this could be mirrored into the leather pieces, the obviously male pieces at a higher level for the shaman on the Alliance. But honestly, I expect that the amount of people that are leveling up alts is going to be reduced for what we expected during pre-patch, given that we now know that pre-patch is not going to be particularly long. So let's dive into our first farm after Tier's hand. So when we were looking to diversify before this news dropped, the first place we went to was Silithus. It had been an okay farm for us up to this point. We'd only done it once, I think, maybe twice during this challenge, and it proved to be reasonably decent. However, I was somewhat disappointed comparative to what I was expecting, so it did reduce my willingness to come back here. I did, however, learn of a few more things that I could farm while I was down here, and there has been a shift in the value and sale rates of the Twilight text, or at least I was led to believe so. So I thought I would come down here and get myself back in on the Silithus farm. And in truth, it was okay. I did farm the sandworms for sandworm meat, and I did farm the air elementals in order to try and get essence of air. And the very first air elemental that I killed gave me an essence of air. I was very happy with this. However, it dropped off and I never got another essence of air again in the next sort of, I think it was 40 elementals that I killed. So I decided to skip those entirely because while the essence of air has great value, it's just not really going to do it for me. The sandworms, however, did give me a little bit more in terms of consistency for sandworm meat, but unfortunately on my realm, unlike others, the meat itself is not as valuable as it could be, so again I decided to shift away from that and move back to the Twilight texts. It was at this point that I moved up into the cave in the northeastern point of Silithus, where I found that a lot of people were farming the mobs outside the cave, but very few were going inside. And while the mobs in there are harder to kill than the ones outside, which I'm assuming is why they don't move in, they did also drop a lot of text, very consistent for me, so I did actually make quite a bit of gold while I was doing this. So I was pretty happy with how the Silithus farm went, but then it was time to move on to another one. So next up we moved over to Winterspring, and in Winterspring the idea was to farm the Furbolgs to get Winterspring Firewater. And this was a great idea for me and many thousands of other people that were deciding to camp that place out. I pretty quickly gave up on the furbolgs after about the fact that 10 minutes I think I managed to kill a single one, because there were just that many people there farming them. So instead, I decided that I would go out and try and get the Chillwind Echoes from these Chimera. And that did actually prove to be pretty decent, because I didn't know at the time, but the Chillwind Chimera was actually giving me echoes that were worth quite a bit of money comparative to the regional market value average. So this, in principle, was going to be a good farm. I did stay here a little while, but I was quite unfortunate with my drop rate, literally getting one echo in quite a long time of farming. I felt quite hard done by and got a little bit demoralised and decided to move away with a view to coming back to Winter Spring at a later date. Of course, now when editing, I'm probably not going to do that because, like I've said, the high-end farms are probably not going to be the most viable anymore. So perhaps this was something of a blessing in disguise. And finally we have a most unusual one, but now with what we know about the release dates, perhaps not the worst one that I could have been doing. That was Scarlet Monastery Cathedral solo on a level appropriate character. So I'm doing this on, I believe I was 41 at the time, or perhaps just 40, doing Scarlet Monastery by myself on a Warlock. It does take a little bit of practice to understand what it is that you need to do in order to make this work, but it's actually not that hard, and it means that I'm going to be getting fantastic experience, as well as, of course, the better drops that you get randomly from the mobs inside of the dungeon. Now, Scarlet Monastery is perhaps one of the most overdone farms in terms of low-level farms, because, of course, the amount of mages that are just constantly boosting in here. But I thought it was worth a go at attempting to get one or two of those blue items from these mobs, while also getting some experience on a character that has other farms that it can do if I were able to level it up. This did prove to be quite lucrative in terms of experience, however, simply due to a lack of capacity to kill mobs quick, as well as the fact that I just got incredibly unlucky with drops, acquiring I think 2 green items in the hour or so that I did here. It didn't prove to be particularly lucrative financially, but I thought it was interesting enough to still warrant a spot on this video, and perhaps is something that I might look at doing again in the future. But for now, let's move over to our bank character and see how we've done in terms of our sales for the last 3 days since last episode. Okay, so you join me now on my bank character, and the first thing that you're going to see is 4,167 gold. Which is roughly about 200-250 gold higher than what we were at in our last episode, so not that bad, in all honesty. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, where things become a little bit less ideal is when we take a look at our auctions and what we have in the bag. Now, I'll just resize this for us, because I know it can be a little bit hard to see for those of us who are on mobile devices. So, first off the bat, the first thing we're going to notice is 469 gold, 25 silver and 7 copper in only 67 posted auctions. That's terrible. That's absolutely shocking. We're never going to make it to our goal like that. And this is largely because of the fact that a lot of value is sat in our bag. Now, for the most part, this is because the prices are too cheap on these items, because almost all of these items are in markets that other people are involved in, and they've seen the news, and the market's been flooded with dirt cheap items. I could invest and buy out these cheap auctions. The problem is, I don't know if I will have enough time to be able to sell through the stock that I would then have before they lose value with the release of TBC. As well as also, I don't know how many people are involved and how many I'd have to buy out, because even if I bought everything out on the auction house, it's plenty possible that someone's put 10 up when they have 100, and I would then have to purchase all of those as well. So, we've got in our bags some Dreamweave items, Black Mage Weave I'm not too fussed about, Free Action Potions, Frost Oils, Spiderbelt Crimson Silk Gloves, some Iron Grenades, a few materials here and there, Elixirs of Shadow Power, Mighty Troll's Blood, more Dreamweave and more Shadow Weave, and then a few Truth Faith gauntlets. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you bear in mind the value of some of these items that are like 10 gold a pop, 15 gold a pop for the Dreamweave, it's a lot of the value of what we're looking to sell. With that said, on the auction house, we still do have 469 gold. It's not that we don't have anything on there, but it's certainly not looking great. We're going to have much the same on here as what you've seen before and what you've just seen in our bag. In the whole of Black Mage Reversed, Dreamweave Gloves. Just going to look out for anything that's a particular standout. So we've got Ghost Mushrooms on here because we purchased more than we needed for when we were doing our crafting. But luckily then the price was higher than it usually is, so we're hoping to recoup some on that. We got some Twilight Cultists pieces from when we were down in Silithus. Thought I'd give these a go, although in truth they're probably just going to end up going to the vendor because it's only 10 silver between the vendor price and what they sell for on the auction house. We have a few of the greens that we picked up from some high level farms, as well as this one that I've now had for a little while for our Shield of the Tiger. I'm thinking that might actually pick up in sale value as well as potentially its actual capacity to sell with the release of the pre-patch when people are leveling up their paladins, given that I play on Horde. We've still got Enchant Chest Major Mana, which should hold value if it doesn't sell before the release of TBC, at least for a little while, so hopefully that one's not dead on us yet. But yeah, it's not looking nice. We don't have an awful lot of variety in here. We have tried to branch out a little bit in today's episode, as you'll have seen at this point. But the big problem we're going to be facing is we're going to need to completely shift markets now that we have confirmations of the dates for the release of both pre-patch and TBC. Now that that information is out and everybody knows for certain that it's right around the corner, the likelihood is that people are going to be stopping raiding entirely. And that means that the value of consumables, which is where we made an awful lot of our money so far, is going to diminish greatly. This does, however, make way for, well, what people will be doing instead of raiding, which is highly likely going to be leveling some alts. Most notably going to be doing the Paladin for me or Shaman if you are playing on Alliance. Now, this is interesting because it does give us the capacity to target these leveling characters for items that they're going to want while leveling. So if they're going to be leveling up their professions, for example, or maybe some blue items that are particularly good for those characters. The problem that we're going to face is the fact that the pre-patch is so short, and the fact that the boost exists, and we've got details on that, and that's its own separate thing. But there's probably not going to be an awful lot of people leveling characters in the pre-patch now as a result of finding out how short the pre-patch is that are anything other than Paladins and Shaman. They're probably going to be getting the boost. A lot of people I spoke to are not opposed to the boost, which is a separate subject entirely. But the boost is a viable option for many, and that means that the only people who are realistically going to be leveling it is obviously the odd one who doesn't want to buy the boost, but realistically it's going to be Shamans and Paladins who are unable to do so due to the restrictions. Meaning that they are going to find it hard to find groups, in principle. So we are really going to wanting to target items that are leveling items to try and get some profit off of them, specifically for those classes depending on what faction you're playing, and also for that class alone, because there isn't going to be an awful lot of increased value, in my opinion, for other classes. Now, that's enough of that. That's next episode's problem of how we're going to diversify into that market, because we do, of course, still have a couple of weeks left until that point, so we're looking to build up stock first. In the meantime, let's have a look at what we did. 497 items we just scrolled through for the last 3 days, of 519 gold in value. So we did actually pick up a little bit in terms of value per item, and 519 gold in 3 days on the auction house is not terrible. It could have been better, but given how much we're lacking in big ticket items and also diversification on our auction house, it's not terrible. We can deal with that. But that is going to about wrap it up for this one, guys. I do hope that you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel and letting me know down below what you liked about this episode so that I can highlight that more in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.